Hello, welcome to the Love Rugby League Podcast, the latest podcast bringing you all the latest big news across the world of rugby league with myself, Matt Shaw, and Aaron Bauer. Aaron, we're back, second episode. We've had a busy week. We've watched a lot of rugby league between us. I've watched 6 games of rugby league, and I'm already rugbyed out. I don't know why I do it to myself, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I maxed out at 3, which is a lot.
You'll have watched some bad football this weekend, though.
I've watched some bad football. I watched some good rugby league, though, which is definitely the most important thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and I wanted to go straight to the game you went to on Friday night. Bradford, BullMania is officially back, and back with a bang. Nearly 10, let's just call it 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000 there. It looked great. But most importantly of all, the Bulls looked great. Really good performance. They tonked Catalans, quite frankly. You were there. Give us a feel, give us a flavour of what you saw, what you felt.
Yeah, they're calling it BullMania 2.0, which is kind of like taking the essence of what made them great 30 years ago, but doing it in a modern way, which was epitomised by Bad Boy Chiller Crew, obviously.
Of course.
Playing pre-match, which you definitely wouldn't have got in the 90s. I was really, really surprised. Look, I think Bradford have deservedly had their critics over recent years. They have struggled to attract crowds. They've obviously had a lot of mismanagement going back years prior to this current regime, which has been headed up by Jason Hurst. I just thought that it was a fantastic occasion to be a part of it. It definitely did feel like the good old days. I heard all sorts of stories in the week about, ticket initiatives being given out. I think they went into like 40 or 50 schools in Bradford, which...
They were out and about in a supermarket, weren't they?
Yeah, they were giving tickets away, I'd heard, in a supermarket, which, look, people might scoff at, but that's kind of like laying the groundwork for what, they were doing this 30 years ago, and it's the secret of success. You get those fans hooked now, and, in 6, 12 months' time, they will buy tickets, they will come. And I think the most important thing was... they needed to see something to believe in, something to come back to. And I think everyone at Bradford was really, really aware of that, look, we've got all these great things planned, and Odsall's been touched up and improved, and we'll touch on that in a minute, I'm sure. But we needed to see Bradford on the field give the public of Bradford something to believe in and something to come back for. And gosh, I thought they did that really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm relatively local to the area. You are more local to the area than me. But I just noticed on my own personal social media, a lot of people that I've not known go to Bradford games for a long time, posting on Instagram and whatever that they were there and that they had a great time, and people messaging me saying, I'm definitely going back. And that's massive. Look, I think I was in the camp that wasn't against Bradford coming in. Look, the system, they worked the system well. They were well within the rights to do that. No dramas at all. Like you understood where the critics came from. But I don't think anyone can deny a good Bradford Bulls is good for Super League. And that, on Friday night, was good for Super League in many ways. Yeah, all right, the old girl is old. Had a bit of a spruce up, to be fair. But it's old, it's not great. But they bring a lot if they're good. And on first evidence, the Bulls are great.
Yeah, look, I think I wrote it a couple of times. Super League does not need Bradford. Super League does not necessarily need any team, but it needs a strong Bradford.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what I think I saw on Friday night. As you say, Odsall's been spruced up. I thought it actually looked better coming home and watching it on TV than it did in person. That's not to say it didn't look good in person. Little touches like the new floodlights, which I think were the first ones they've had installed since the last time they moved out and it got renovated, which is how long, the early 2000s. There was a light show. The LED advertising boards really looked good on TV, I thought. Really take the emphasis away from the stands and onto the pitch. Pitch was in great nick, I thought. They've done it. They've put a lot of money into that. They've obviously widened it out now. The stock cars out there and things like that. And as I say, I'll just go back to on the field. They're really, really exciting. I think there's an argument that they are the most entertaining team in Super League right now, because the way they play, and it was epitomised by the try they conceded right at the start of the second half. They just don't die wondering. They want to play, they want to entertain, and they've almost made a little bit of a mockery of this theory that the Odsall pitch is so narrow, so small, you can't play good rugby on it. Some of the tries they scored, look, we could probably turn the gun on Catalans and question them a bit, and Joel Tompkins certainly wasn't shy in doing that. But I thought Bradford, with a squad that most critics, I don't believe anyone genuinely thought Bradford will be doing that to teams like Catalans early doors. Even the most optimistic Bradford fan would not have foreseen something like that coming. they really pulled them apart. With some players that you might question, are these guys Super League players? But together, they look greater than the sum of their parts. They play hot, off-the-cuff rugby. They like to test teams with their speed and their pace. Again, there's been talk about their pack. Is it big enough? I think Bradford are almost leaning into that narrative a little bit, and Kurt Haggett is leaning into that with his players, as if to say, look, maybe we aren't the biggest on occasions, but we'll get you around the edges. We'll get you quick. And, you know, it all sets it up this weekend for a phenomenal game against Toulouse, who somehow, well, not somehow, they are one of only 2 teams to have 2 wins from 2. And I just think Bradford really put on a show off the field for the public of Bradford on Friday, but more importantly, on it with the rugby they play. Yeah,
I agree. They are good to watch. Interesting to see how they go when the track's firm up a little bit. And you're right, look, I was really underwhelmed with Catalan. So in the middle, the pack was rubbish, basically. But don't take anything away from Bradford. They made them look rubbish. So
yeah, I agree.
Right, let's move on to another promoted team where the story's around a little bit, not so much for them per se, but York. They obviously lost to Leeds at the weekend, but the story that we broke on Saturday was about their quota. So, inside scoop, we've been scratching our heads going, what's going on with York's quota? Because you have to look at the squad like, well, there's 10 there, and then there's Vuni, Yawar, and it doesn't make sense. So we did some digging, and to put it in a nutshell, what they've done is, through the partnership with Newcastle Funder, some of the players are going there on 1-week loans, and when they go on a loan, they go off the quota, and then they can loan someone from Newcastle, so they can access more. Essentially, in a nutshell, they can access two squads of players week to week, and they're doing nothing wrong. Now, I've seen a lot of people very critical of York. I'm the other way. I think they've seen a rule, they've found a way to manipulate it and to work it to their advantage. Good on them. They've done nothing wrong. But it is a very, very strange quirk that could have some big ramifications moving forward, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. The rules are there to be exploited. And if there's a loophole, why shouldn't York go out of their way to try and exploit it? I mean, fair play to them. You know, they've seen a gap in the market here, for want of a better phrase, and there's no quota limit in the Championship. So effectively, Newcastle could build a squad of 25 overseas quota players, and York could literally decide week to week, we're going to take these 10. You know, we were texting, weren't we, during the week, that Vuniaya was the one when he was named in their 21. We thought, well, hang on, they've already got 10 quota here. How are they managing to do it? You obviously boxed it off and got the story, which was great. And I think it's going to really set a bit of a precedent across the competition. Look, since that story went out on Saturday, I've had a couple of CEOs text me saying, you know, we weren't fully aware we could do this, and now we are aware. Maybe we'll look into doing this ourselves. And the York-Newcastle model is where things really become interesting here, because York have made no secret about the fact that their fringe players are going to go and play for Newcastle, and they are going to use Newcastle to their advantage. It sort of leans into a wider conversation about the Championship. I'm aware of another couple of Super League clubs that are looking at doing something similar. There's all sorts of talk bubbling away about local teams in West Yorkshire that might be doing something similar. And it just pricks a couple of clubs' ears up, I think, to the fact that actually, if we can get our teeth into a Championship club and send some of our players there, why mess about with reserve grade, for example, when we can actually send our players to a Championship team, get them proper high standard rugby, which the Championship is a really good standard now, and we can also bring in quota players, send them to these Championship clubs, and if we decide week to week that guy's not going to play for us, he goes and plays in the Championship, we'll take 10 quota players. It's a bit of a mess for the RFL to get a grip on, I think.
I think that they will, from the sounds I heard over the weekend,
tighten it.
They've got a watchful eye on it, and if it becomes, without swearing, if clubs start taking the mick, they'll pull it in and they'll change things around. But I think by and large, there's that much concern over player pool. I think actually they're not overly bothered about it.
Well, York are going to do it again, aren't they? Because Nofaluma's going in at York or Newcastle, however you want to look at it. He signed with York. He's going to be in Newcastle's squad at some point. He might be in York's squad this weekend. I think they go to Hull on Friday night. I don't think this will be the first time a Super League club does this. I think you will see over the course of the next 6 months more Super League clubs strengthen relationships with Championship clubs. I don't think you have to be too much of a genius to look at which Super League clubs are loaning players to which Championship clubs to see that there are already pre-existing relationships there. And I think as long as this loophole remains open, I think it's a pathway for clubs to abuse the system almost. And going right back to what we said at the start, are we criticising York for this? I'm not sure we are.
I've been hammered by York fans for saying, why are you being so negative? I'm applauding them for what they've done. I think fair play.
I think they've seen a gap in the market. I think they've seen a hole in the system and they're exploiting it. Does it help their squad consistency? Well, that's another debate, isn't it? Because, I don't think you can read too much into what happened at Headingley on Friday night. I think they were just beaten by a team that's got genuine title aspirations.
Probably the sort of out game that you would expect the week before against Hull KR as well.
But I definitely think it's one to keep an eye on, and I think other clubs are now aware of it. As I say, I've had a couple of clubs say to me, we're going to look into this now. We're going to see if we can do what York have done and effectively try and take ownership of a struggling Championship club, prop them up with their own investment, and then use their player pool to their advantage.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right at the start. Much bigger implications on this. What does it mean for reserve grade moving forward if more clubs go down this model? Quota players, it might be a way where clubs can go, we're not sure on this quota player, but we can send him to as our feeder club for a year, see how he gets on, and then we commit. There's that. There's loads.
I think
there's loads, and as you say, clubs actually investing in or building actual official partnerships with lower league clubs, which could be the future.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think sadly, it's almost on a daily basis now. We're seeing a Championship club put a statement or a comment out that finances are really, really tight. I think Hunslet, just a quick shout out for them, should be applauded for managing to turn a profit in this current climate. But you've got two clubs, Halifax, who we hope and we believe will be back within the next 2 or 3 weeks, Featherstone, who will be back next year. And I just wonder if there are some Super League clubs looking at those two case examples thinking, these guys have clearly struggled in the past. Yeah. Maybe that's actually the perfect club for us to look at, to take some ownership on or get some investment in, and again, abuse the system and almost trial quota players in the Championship. Is it a good look for the game? Maybe not, but it's not York's duty to uphold things like that, is it? It's their job to just put a competitive squad together, and if they want to take a punt on a David Nofaluma or a King Vuniyayawa, if he doesn't play well, send him back to Newcastle and he plays in the Championship. If he manages to look fantastic at what I assume is a cut price value, and he comes into York's squad, brilliant.
It'll be interesting to see how the fans of the lower league clubs take it, but that's a conversation for another day.
Absolutely.
Right, let's move on to Vegas.
Yes.
I am going, can't wait.
I'm not.
You are not going. Sin City, Hull KR, Leeds. We'll get on to the World Club Challenge in a minute. Vegas, it's back. Look, I'm a huge fan of anything like this, taking the game away, mainly because I get to go.
Yes,
superb. But I think Super League's got the right game, and you got two of the three outstanding teams probably right now. It's a great event to be in. There's a huge number of UK supporters going. What a game! Just going to be a great event. Just great for Super League to be involved in stuff like this for me.
Yeah, and I think you're probably the best person qualified because you went last year as well. I think I know the two clubs have had conversations with Wigan and Warrington who went last year, and they've taken a lot of learnings away from maybe what not to do. There was talk of, did Warrington in particular maybe burn their players out a little bit with all the promo they were doing and some of the stuff around the travel, and obviously we saw what...
Sam Burgess and the visa.
Yeah, and we saw what came out in the wash with Warrington's performance in Vegas, which was pretty awful. But I think, as you say, this is just a glorious opportunity again for Super League to stand shoulder to shoulder with the NRL. And I always think opportunities like these, it's maybe the things behind the scenes that you don't see. You're going to be rubbing shoulders with guys like Peter Volandis, Andrew Abdo, and it's just a prime opportunity for Super League to strengthen that bond. Rodri Jones will be going out there from RL Commercial, and I think those kind of talks behind the scenes are what really make Vegas worthwhile. Look, for the fans who are going, I think there's about 8,000 fans going, something like that. That's just a trip of a lifetime, isn't it? It's something that Hull KR fans especially would probably have never thought they would have got to have done. But I think we spoke about it at the start of the season that Super League needs to have more tentpole opportunities like this. The World Cup Challenge was great last week, really drove a lot of interest in the game. And then you've got Vegas this week, and then you almost sink into a week-to-week rhythm ordinarily.
Yeah.
But, there's other things coming over the horizon this year. Magic's selling great. There's Paris, which is going to be a fantastic occasion. Sounds like Wigan and Warrington are trying to do Dublin at some stage next year. I think this is the way the game needs to go now. I think it needs to put a flag in the sand almost in new territories, in new cities, and try and get people interested and invested in the game outside of the bubble. The bubble's growing, the attendances are going up, which is fantastic.
Which is really good.
But the only way you truly puncture the mainstream is by going to Vegas, getting Super League on the biggest stage. And you're going. You've seen it firsthand. I mean, I assume you're very much excited for it again, mate.
I am, yes. I'll be working really hard.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
Work hard, play harder. It's just great. I mean, there's so many people there. You're at the heart of everything. There's so many people you can just see and speak to, and the clubs do a real good job of putting events on. One thing I will say, and I should probably reserve saying this until after, the NRL, from my own experience, haven't been as well organised this year. It's been quite difficult with accreditation and stuff like that. It's been a bit frustrating.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. They're really on it last year. This time it's been hard to. So as an example, they only sent out the events list on. Well, we got it, I think, last night. Applied for the accreditation to Fremont. Went, the capacity's up on media at Fremont. It's like, you've literally just sent it.
Oh, right, okay.
So little things like that, but they might all iron out in the next couple of days. Not sure how the clubs feel. It'll be interesting to get the clubs' feedback, because obviously Wigan and Warrington were raving about them.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to know what the two clubs and RLC and RFL all think about when they come back this time. But I hope it's there to stay. It's great for the fans. I know that not everyone can get there, and there's some people, we can't go, and then we miss out on I get it. I understand. I do completely get that point. But I think bigger picture, it's an awesome experience. And I mean, for KR in particular, after what they did on Thursday, what a 10 days that could be for them. World Club champions and then winning Vegas. That night out on Saturday was very, very big if they do.
Yeah, and look, I think this is what probably presents it as a slightly bigger opportunity for Super League than last year with what happened last Thursday. Someone is going to Vegas as the world champions for the first time, and it's a Super League club. Mm-hmm. I think probably fairly, let's be realistic, not many NRL fans are going to be too aware of Hull KR until they beat Brisbane Broncos, because people would have watched that game in Australia, wanted to watch the Broncos, expected the Broncos to have done a real job on Hull KR. I saw some of the headlines. Mm-hmm. There was talk that it was going to be a washout after Hull KR lost at York and things like that. Well, I think Hull KR have put themselves on the map going to Vegas, but I think they've probably put a few more eyeballs on Super League, because people will want to see in Australia how good are this team that beat the Broncos, and how good are the team are they playing, because Leeds are a much more recognisable name. They're former champions, former world champions. So I think Hull KR winning that game has actually probably benefited Super League and the interest it's going to get going over there, because you've got the world champions in town.
Great.
Never had that before at any Vegas. No NRL team has gone there as world champions. Wigan were there, I suppose, as the defending world champions by fact of there was no World Club Challenge last year. But this is red hot. This has happened a week ago. So Hull KR are going to drive some eyeballs, I think, on Vegas, which can only be a good thing for Super League.
Some night last Thursday.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I definitely didn't think Hull KR would win, but I also definitely didn't think it would be a washout and a blowout. You sort of felt an energy in the build-up to the game, didn't you, when you were inside, that Hull KR, their supporters, the club were going to make it as difficult a night for Brisbane as possible. And things like Corey Jensen going off in the first minute definitely doesn't help, but for an hour, Hull KR were pretty much perfect, weren't they? I mean, I am glad Hull KR won from a Super League perspective, but it was, from a neutral perspective, it was enjoyable watching Brisbane for that 20 minutes. They were absolutely sensational. I mean, you probably take it for granted over there. It's probably similar to us with certain sports here, maybe like football. You take for granted that you can see genuine superstars every single week. Mm-hmm. To see players like Walsh, Carrigan, who I love, doing their stuff at that ground was brilliant. It was just another fantastic night for Super League. But Hull KR stood up. They're big players who there have been question marks. Can their bigger, better players stand up when it matters? I thought they all did.
Yeah, I mean, Lytton and Hadley for me. There was a story to be done there that we didn't actually do about Lytton and Hadley, two former FC players win the World Club Challenge and have been two of the key pillars of their growth and ascent. You know, they've not only taken over the city of Hull, as you know, in terms of rugby, they've taken over the competition, haven't they? They hold all 4 trophies. And I did think there was some romantic story there in a way about Lytton and Hadley probably being the best 2 players on the pitch. It's a different discussion. Look, I know what they say we're not great at the weekend. They're a conversation for another week, but they're on the right track.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, KR, it must have been, there were a lot of Hull FC fans at that ground.
Yeah, there were.
And that must have been a tough night for them, because I would have been irked getting there. You've got Hull KR merchandise stalls. You've got the signs Robin's territory. They've got all the trophies outside the ground. Then you get in and it's red, and they've got the and I'd just be thinking, I was thinking, if I was a Hull FC, I'm like, I hope Brisbane absolutely smash these.
I would not have gone to that game.
But then I was also thinking, what would you be thinking when they're 34 up and going, oh my God, this is a nightmare situation?
There were some worried faces around me in the press box when that score went to that. But I tell you, there were some cheers when Brisbane was scoring as well.
There was.
You know, it was almost like a Hull derby in that. When the team that were playing Hull KR was scoring, you were getting some huge cheers. Yeah. And it was... Hull FC fans won't agree, but I think it's great for the city of Hull to have a team from the city be world champions. I know it's not the one Hull FC wanted, but I think just to put some eyes on the city, and it'll put some eyes on Hull FC as well. You know, I think it'd be interesting to see how they respond this year now. But on Rovers, yeah, you're right about Lytton. In particular, I thought he was by some distance the man of the match, actually. Artem Org was phenomenal for half an hour until he went off, and he's going to be a big miss for a while. You would assume Broadbent probably goes to fullback, don't you, for the foreseeable future. It's a good job Lytton's under contract for a period, because if there were NRL recruitment bosses watching that game on Thursday night, they would have liked what they saw from Jez Lytton. I would be almost certain of that.
And then Dean Adley's just getting on a flight with potentially fractured eye socket.
Yeah, which is some sort of huge health risk. But
the man's a joke. He's just a joke. He's a machine. Despite the fact everyone now recognises how good he is, he's still criminally underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
He should be in the England squad. Can I just have a quick word? I don't feel like we should avoid it. The Mikey Lewis videos.
Yes.
I'm caught on this because you don't have with instances like this, you don't have the full context.
No.
You don't see the full thing. You don't know what's happened before. You don't know what happens after. You only get essentially 12 seconds. But it feels like, why is he putting himself in that situation?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see, I can hear the comments coming on social media already, but I can definitely see both sides of it. I think Mikey probably needs a little bit of advice, a little bit of protection, a little bit. You know, don't put yourself in those situations. We are talking about a kid now who is potentially the biggest sporting star in Hull almost now. Certainly, he is. Certainly the most recognisable face in the city of Hull sporting wise. And, you know, that's probably difficult for him to get to terms of as well as everyone else. But you're right, you definitely don't see what's happening in the run-up to that video, someone pressing record on that video. It's entirely possible someone was provoking him and winding him up. Does it excuse his response? I don't think it does, no.
And let's put context. We've not seen him hit anyone,
no.
So it's not. It's compared to some of the other things we've seen in rugby league of this. It's not as anywhere near as bad.
No,
but my thought when I saw it was, after the game he said he has to win the trust back of the players after the trip on Liam Harris. Well, that's not the way to do it. And look, we don't know how he ended up in that situation. Yeah. I just think, it's not a great look for him, is it?
No, it's not. But my primary thought was, I think he probably just needs a bit of advice here now. I think, whether that's don't put yourself in those situations, and that's difficult, isn't it? Because you're effectively telling a lad in his mid-20s to not go out with his friends and things like that. But does there have to be an element of understanding the position you're in?
That's
he isn't the kid that was on loan at York anymore, that people weren't actually too bothered about. And it's so passionate in that city. You will have fans of Hull FC, fans of anyone. desperate to be all over him, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. They will want a piece of him. And I just think he probably needs a bit of advising on that front now. Doesn't excuse him behaving and reacting the way he did, doesn't excuse the people potentially provoking him the way they did. But I just think that situation could have been avoided entirely.
Yeah, my last note on that is, and this I might be wrong here, but there were no sign of any other Hull KR players in it. I just think just go out with teammates.
Yeah.
Maybe he was, maybe he genuinely was, and they just weren't in the shot.
This is the trouble, isn't it?
You
don't see the full picture.
And that's why I'm not being awfully critical of him, because we don't know the full context. So anyway, right, let's move on, wrap up with a bit of transfer stuff, because it's actually been pretty lively so far in terms of immediate stuff and stuff for 2027, and you've got a little bit of news on Mark Percival.
Yeah, look, you brought the story, didn't you, that an exit from St Helens is looking pretty much nailed on, whether that be later this year or at the end of this year. You then said that Huddersfield were in the mix for him. I've been told now that Huddersfield are really, really close to getting this done. They're really, really confident this is going to happen. There's another club from West Yorkshire who were definitely in talks with Mark Percival and definitely interested. But Huddersfield looks like it's going to be where he ends up, probably 27. I would think, unless they can move someone on. I'm sure you'll know a little bit more about that. Someone would probably have to go for Mark Percival to come now. But there's a couple of things that have swung it Huddersfield's way. He's got a really good relationship with Adam Swift, who is a Giants player and a real key part of their squad, even though he's injured at the minute. They go way back from their time at St Helens. That was a big sell for Percival, geographically as well. You know, you drive across the Pennines, first place you hit is Huddersfield in terms of rugby league. Yeah. He's really settled in Widnes. He doesn't want to relocate from his base at Widnes, which kind of rules anyone beyond Huddersfield, potentially beyond Leeds out, doesn't it? You know, it pretty much draws a line through everyone. So it does sound like I'm hearing that's potentially Mark Percival's direction of travel. St Helens, more likely 27, unless someone gets out at Huddersfield imminently.
Very hard to see Saints letting him go now with the injuries they've got as well, because obviously Nene McDonald went off with a quad.
Yes, and I think Paul Rowling nailed it, didn't he, when he said it's very, very worrying if Nene McDonald's going off.
And he's been quite clear he doesn't want Mark Percival to leave this year anyway. So I can't see a scenario where Percival ends up leaving this year. Not right now. Things change, but right here, right now, don't see it. The good thing for Huddersfield, there's a couple of things. You mentioned geographical. With them moving to Laund Hill and their training base being there, that is actually about 15 minutes closer for people travelling off the motorway. And people will go, so what? It's 15 minutes there and back every day.
Half an hour a day. 2 hours a week.
It makes a big difference to players. It does make a big difference to players. On the quiet, look, Giants 0 from 2. On the quiet, Huddersfield are doing some good things. Like they've a long way to go. They have a long way to go, but they're putting little bits in slowly but surely, and they're becoming a little bit more attractive, maybe without people realising at the minute. So that's good for them. Saints, they're struggling with injuries, but I can't see them bringing anyone in because they've got the cap space.
Again, it would have to be an out and in, wouldn't it? I think if they identified someone and could find someone, I don't think they would be definitively against the door being pushed open for Mark Percival to go. Now, I think all parties, if the opportunity presented itself, would probably accept it. It is where it is, and it's going to come to an end.
Screams to me they want a hooker. Just looking at how the season's gone so far, Jake Burns isn't getting in. You've now lost Johnny Lomax. Don't think that injury's as bad as they thought. They were talking it could have been a real bad one. I think it's a couple of months.
Fractured arm, isn't it?
It's wrist. Dislocated his wrist. But he's had surgery on that now. Don't think it's as bad as they thought. Which is good.
If they are fully fit or close to fully fit, they do have a lot of depth in the outside backs. They obviously need Percival now. Yeah. I understand that. But you can run through a pretty good list of outside backs that they've got. And they even have the option, I know it's not ideal, to chuck the likes of Whitley in there as a last resort. So you're right. I think if Percival was to go now, I don't think it's like for like. I don't think they get a centre.
No.
But I think they need him now. They needs must now. And it does sound like Huddersfield in 27. And the other club that we know looking at Cass, they're scouring the market.
They need people in the pack, Aaron.
They do, but from what I'm hearing, their priority is a fullback. They are looking for a TAF replacement, and they have got the salary cap exemption. Sorry, they've managed to get 26, 27. So let me get that right. Of Blake Taft's salary back on their cap because he's only played one game. I think it's up until round 3. If something like that happens, you can do that. They are pushing for cap exemption as well, which they are hopeful they can get. And I think they're going to try and use Liggy Sow as an example last year, because Hull then went into the market and got Liam Knight, which was a really good signing. So I think Cass are pushing for a fullback, and I think if they can get that quota exemption, they will go back into the Aussie market. We know of a few names that are always being touted around as options, and I would think Cass will probably do something pretty soon.
Yeah. I still think they need forwards now, though. I mean, they've got, we've brought the stories like Mullen, Brown, Ben McNamara. They're all going next year.
Yeah.
But
there's rumours of James Harrison as well going next year. Which, all of a sudden then they do have a better pack, but that's 12 months away.
Exactly.
We played 2 games this year and we're already talking about Castleford in 27.
I don't make judgments on clubs or teams until 10 rounds in. I don't make definitive judgments. But 2 rounds in, I'm going, they absolutely need some forwards in that team because the pack isn't where it needs to be.
I would not be surprised if you see some rotation in their pack in terms of as in players leaving and players coming in throughout the course of the year. I think it's well documented they're on an evolution. Certainly doesn't excuse how poor they were in Toulouse on Saturday, by the way. I thought they were miles off it. But I think there's a lot of forwards there who will almost certainly be leaving at the end of the year anyway, and I think if the opportunity comes to move them on now, or some of those players get the opportunity to take deals at other clubs that protect their careers a bit, I don't think Castleford will be massively against that. So I think Cass are definitely one club that will be covering a lot throughout 26 because it'll be constant throughout the year. You look at clubs like Hull KR, obviously Lee, clubs like that, very rarely do big recruitment mid-season because of where they are. I think Cass probably are going to do quite a bit.
Yeah, and the one that I could see end up going early is Jack Brown, because we just know that Hull KR are always scheming in the recruitment market and looking to do things. We know they're right up to cap.
Yeah.
If they know Jack Brown's got, and let's be honest, Jack Brown looks like he's down the pecking order. You think that he wasn't in the World Club Challenge squad. He was 18th man, he's still got Desaria to come in. Just not sure he gets... If something came up, I could see that they would look to move him on, and that would be a good move for Cass if they could get him early.
Absolutely. And, Hull KR did it last year, didn't they? They were going to get Morg. This year, the opportunity came up to get him in early. They facilitated that by Evels going to Huddersfield early.
Wouldn't surprise me if something similar happens.
Yeah, I think if Rovers have already identified someone for 27 and they can get them now, the Jack Brown one could definitely happen throughout the course of the year.
And we will wrap up there. This has been the second episode of the Love Rugby League podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you keep seeing all of our content. I've been Matt Shaw. This has been Aaron Bauer, and we will see you again very soon. Take care.